So in this week's video, I basically wanted to start a discussion, a conversation about social anxiety. I want to talk about my experiences with it and how I basically overcame it, how I worked to improve it, and maybe this video can help you or help someone that you know who is suffering with social anxiety. So for most of my life, I suffered with social anxiety, and it wasn't until I was away on a Europe trip that I even heard this term for the first time. I was basically away with my best friend Jasmine. We were in Croatia doing a sail, and there was someone else, part of our group, on our sail. I was just chatting to her, and she said something along the lines of, oh, referring to someone else, oh yeah, she has really bad social anxiety right now, so she wasn't able to make it here and there. And when I heard that, it just like all clicked into place to me. I was like, this is what I have. This is what I have been suffering with for my whole life. I could never figure out what was happening because I didn't know what it was. So prior to that, I had basically just accepted people's definitions of me as quiet or shy. Because I really didn't know what social anxiety was, I didn't know that it was something that could be worked on or improved or overcome. So this was a big turning point for me. So what is social anxiety? If you've never heard of it, then you don't have it. And I envy you, I really do, because it can be crippling. I suffered with it quite a lot, but I know some people have it way worse. I'm going to let you know what some of the signs and symptoms of social anxiety disorder. It is a disorder. So basically, social anxiety disorder can include constant fear of situations in which you may be negatively judged. You're constantly worried about embarrassing yourself or humiliating yourself, intense fear of interacting or talking with strangers. You have a fear that others will notice that you look anxious. You have fear of the physical symptoms that may cause you embarrassment, such as blushing, sweating, trembling, or having a shaky voice. Avoidance of doing things or speaking to people out of fear of embarrassment. Avoidance of situations where you might be the center of attention. Anxiety in anticipation of a feared activity or event. Intense fear or anxiety during social situations, which is basically the overarching theme of what social anxiety is. And then analysis of your performance and identification of flaws in your interactions after a social situation. Expectation of the worst possible consequences from a negative experience during a social situation. So I didn't experience every one of those things. I don't know. I feel like everyone experiences different things, different symptoms. So my experience was that I could basically pinpoint the situations after some time. I could pinpoint what kind of situation would make me anxious, and then I would avoid that situation. So it would basically be meeting new people, a group of maybe 5 or 6 people sitting around a dinner table, like, I'm not going. I was just kind of terrified of being in that environment, because 5 people is like small enough of a group that you're kind of talking to everyone, right? So when someone's talking, everyone else is listening. Almost like you're giving a speech, but you're not, because it's just a casual social situation. So that was my worst nightmare, like having a dinner. A party was like not bad for me, you know, it's a lot of people, you're kind of like in your small groups, it's fine. For me, I was comfortable around my friends, people I know, people I'm comfortable with, that's fine. But even with my friends, I found that I just enjoy, this is just who I am as like an introvert. I just enjoy being one-on-one with people or just in like smaller groups. Some of the physical symptoms that I would have are excessive sweating. I would be sweating a lot. My voice would be really shaky when I talked. I would kind of almost be trembling. You know, if I was in a social situation in high school, in uni, whatever, with people I don't know, these kind of physical things would happen. I would be really nervous and anxious. I would get really hot, but because I'm dark, you can't tell that I'm like going red, but that is what's happening. I'm getting very hot on my neck and my cheeks. So some of the mental symptoms that I would have would be that I wouldn't be present in the conversation or in the situation. I would be inside my head worrying, what am I going to say next? Oh my god, there's a silence. There's like a stream of things happening inside my head, right? I'm not really there in the conversation. I'm like there, like half listening, but I'm kind of scared because I'm like, oh my god, what am I going to say next? Who's going to talk next? Do I look okay? What's happening? I wonder if people are noticing that this is happening inside my head. You're pretty much spiraling at that point. So I experienced that a lot in social situations with people I didn't know. And I would also worry about my mind going blank, which it did a few times. So yeah. So in response to me suffering from these kind of things, I would basically avoid the situations that I knew triggered me. So I wouldn't go to a party with like 5 people. Like I'm not going. I won't be attending. I'll tell my friend can't come. Yeah, I would just avoid these situations where I would have to be talking to people I don't know, or like in groups of people where I'm not comfortable, where I don't know them. I have to make small talk. Like I was just super uncomfortable, and I was like, I'm just not gonna go. Yeah. It wasn't a great decision, but that's the choice that I made. So there was a point where I was like, this is probably affecting my life a little bit too much, and I'm probably missing out on opportunities that I would take if it wasn't for this anxiety that I'm feeling. So I decided to make a change because I wanted to improve on this, and I wanted to just not accept that this is the way that everything is. I did a few things over the course of a few years to kind of improve and get better and let it not affect me so much. The first and most important thing that I did was decide that this was an issue that I wanted to overcome. I knew that I could change. I no longer saw it as like just a part of who I was. I was like, okay, this is something that I can change if I work on it. It's like a skill that I can develop. So that's the first thing that I did, because I realized that it was holding me back from opportunities. It was holding me back from meeting people that maybe should be in my life, or like, you know, just holding me back from a lot of things in life. And I decided that that was not how I wanted to live my life. The second step that I took, my boyfriend at the time suggested that we do an improv class. So I basically told him how I was feeling, and I was just like, I want to improve on this, what can we do? He suggested an improv class, and I didn't want to do it. It was like my worst nightmare. I was like, no. Anyway, he dragged me to it, and we ended up going, and it turned out to be really, really helpful and really, really good. It was the first kind of step in exposing myself, exposure therapy, to these kind of situations where it's uncomfortable, where you feel a little bit like unsure and you feel nervous, and it's just normal and it's part of the experience. And everyone was there for the same reason, basically. We did this improv class. It was kind of like a term long thing, so like 6-7 weeks long thing, and it really, really helped me a lot because it helped me to get out of my head, and it helped me to just kind of think on the spot more and not worry so much about like what other people are thinking, or like, because they're, at the end of the day, they're not even thinking about you or looking at you, okay? Like, they're just not. At the start of the term and at the start of the class, we went around and kind of said why we decided to start improv, like, you know, each of our reasons. So it was interesting because most people were kind of like, yeah, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, or I had this nervousness when it comes to like these kinds of group activities, so I wanted to overcome that, or like I have social anxiety. Like, you know, it was a lot of that kind of thing, and it made me feel less alone. So I was like, okay, I'm not like alone in this. Like, this is something that people suffer with, and you know, it's great that we have this opportunity, this improv class, to be all on the same page. No one's judging each other. It's a safe environment. Yeah, it was a really great first thing to do. So that was before I moved to London. I was still in Melbourne. And then after I moved to London, I was seeing a therapist. I kind of talked to her a little bit about my social anxiety, and we basically really only had one session on it. So I was like, I want to focus on this. She was like, okay, we're going to do CBT. We did one session. She kind of introduced me into the CBT aspect of it, and it's basically a lot to do with like just exposing yourself to these situations, exposing yourself to the situations that you fear. So for me, it was like putting myself in situations, going to events. Since I was kind of involved in the industry at the time, like the blogger whatever industry, there was all these events where I didn't know anyone. So I would push myself to go to those things, and she was kind of guiding me through that, and there was a few exercises and things that we did in the first session that really helped as well. It was basically like attention shifting. So instead of being inside your head when someone is talking, it's like, okay, focusing on physical things that are happening around you so that you're more present in the moment. So those kind of things really help, but we really only had one session, and then my personal life imploded. So I didn't have any capacity to continue social anxiety, you know, CBT therapy at that point. I had other things to focus on. I do suggest getting professional help if you feel like it's affecting your day-to-day life, and if you feel like it's something that you really want to overcome. I really, really suggest and encourage you to overcome it, because you can, okay? All you have to do is put yourself in situations where you do it and do it and do it, and then it no longer becomes scary. It no longer is a fear for you. So as I familiarized myself with social anxiety and everything, I also came across the fact that it is genetic. So if your biological siblings or your parents, anyone in your family has social anxiety or has had it, then you're more likely to have it as well. It's something that's passed on. So that made me kind of like realize, okay, my parents, you know, whatever, like, you know, I just kind of looked into it a bit more, and I was just like, okay, it's good to know. So another thing that is really important is to not be so self-critical about it. I was super, super self-critical about this social anxiety, and I was like, why am I like this? I hate being like this. It was very negative, super mean self-talk, and I'm really sorry to my past self that I talked to myself like that and that I treated myself like that, because it's just not productive to view it in that way. All you can do is recognize it as something that you want to improve and something that maybe you want to change, and then work on that. and that's it. So over the last 5 years or so, I've really improved and kind of almost basically overcome my social anxiety. I'm not saying that I never get anxious or I never feel socially anxious in some situations. I do. It's a lot more manageable now. I don't feel like it's crippling, or I don't feel like I'm saying no to opportunities because of it anymore, which is basically what I wanted to get out of, you know, improving it. Obviously, it's been 5 years. It takes a lot of time. We had 2 years of COVID where there was no social situations. So let's say 3 years of my life of me constantly putting myself in situations where I would be pushed and challenged and forced to be in social situations where I maybe felt uncomfortable and then was able to improve. So I would say I've seen the most improvements last year just because I was in so many like unknown, uncertain social situations. I started solo travel, which is a whole another thing. I was going to a lot of events. Usually I'd go on my own. I was saying yes to a lot of things. If my friends would invite me somewhere, I would say yes. I would try and go and be present in all these activities and things, and I feel like that helped me so much. And it's only going to get better because I'm not going to stop doing that, because I know that it's something that I continuously need to work on, like a skill. If I stop doing it for some time, then yes, naturally I will feel the social anxiety again and I'll get more anxious. But the more that I do it, the less that it overtakes my life, the less that I fear it. Back when I had really bad social anxiety, I would also need to know all of the variables of the social situation. Like when I first moved to London, my friends invited me to a picnic and I just thought it was the 3 of us, like the 3 girls. I arrived there and it was like a group of like 10 people and I got so socially anxious. I was like, oh my god, like physical things were happening. Like I was sweating. I was like, yeah, it was a lot, and I was just like, oh my god, like, I was like, why didn't you tell me that there was gonna be like 10 people here? Obviously it's like not a big deal to someone who doesn't know or like doesn't have social anxiety, but to me it was like blindsided. I was like, oh my god, like I need to leave, like this is too much, and it was it was a terrible feeling. So I no longer need to know all the variables of a social situation, which is kind of a relief. Like I don't need to know who's gonna be there, how many people, is it gonna be a dinner, is it gonna be a sit down around a round table, like, you know, I don't need to know those things. Okay, I'm fine. It's all good. So the final and most important point is that I no longer viewed it as part of my identity. I was no longer referring to myself as a socially anxious person. I no longer said that I have social anxiety. I removed myself, I detached myself from it. And I think that was so helpful and so liberating because I no longer felt trapped by this, okay? Like I was no longer like, I'm that person. So basically, if you want to change something about yourself, let's say a habit or, you know, anxiety, whatever it is, I think it's really helpful to, no longer define yourself as having that habit. So for example, let's say I always refer to myself as a night owl, because I am. But I want to be a morning person. I need to stop referring to myself as a night owl. I need to stop telling everyone that I'm a night owl. I need to identity shift, basically. So I need to refer to myself as a morning person. I need to start believing that I'm a morning person. And then the rest will just come naturally. I will naturally become a morning person, okay? That's kind of how it works. A lot of it is mental, and the more that you tell yourself something, or the more that you believe something about yourself to be true, the more that it will show up in your reality. It will be a mirror. Okay, it'll show you those things because that's what you believe. That's just the way that it works. Once I removed myself from the disorder, the social anxiety and me, removed, detached, I no longer, was associated with it. It improved like tenfold. It improved so much because I was like, I'm no longer associated with this thing. It's not me, like it's fine, I'm good. We're good. So in summary, I would say that if you're suffering with social anxiety, if you've experienced some of these symptoms before, or if you know someone that has, your friend, someone you know, your sibling, whatever, and you can recognize these things in someone, then I would say the best things that worked for me, firstly, to become aware of it and recognize it as something that you want to change or improve. Secondly, if you feel that you need professional help, that's always a really good thing to do, to even just get an opinion on everything and help them guide you through the process of changing and improving all those things. Next, remove it as part of your identity. It's no longer you, it's no longer who you are. Next, exposure therapy, self-directed exposure therapy. So you don't need to have a therapist or a psychologist or anything to just push yourself to do it, okay? So you can push yourself to go in these situations where you feel uncomfortable, and you will know what other situations that trigger you. It's probably different for everyone. It's different for me, different for you. You really have to push yourself, and if you're not working with a therapist, let's say, you can involve your friend, have your friend help you and guide you and keep you accountable. You don't want to do something or whatever, then your friend will be there to to push you and to encourage you and to be there for you. Yeah, those are basically the summary points and what I would suggest and what helped me to improve and become less socially anxious. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I hope that it was helpful. This is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a long time because it is something that affected me for a really large part of my life, and I'm feeling so much better and I'm feeling so much more free and liberated now that I don't have that within me anymore. Like, I've worked on it, I've improved, and I don't let it control my life anymore. It's not a big fear for me. Like, I'm open to the uncertainty of social situations, and it's good. I'm happier and it's great. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok and Pinterest. And if you have any requests, questions, whatever, leave them in the comments below and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!